Hey y'all, how are you doing? I've always wanted to become a video game journalist. I've been playing games ever since time immemorial. I just have always loved playing video games. I started off with a Nintendo that my father purchased for me, and he didn't buy us many video games, but I would play the heck out of that same game for years, like Mario Brothers 1, Mario Brothers 2, 3. Those were some of my favorite Mario games just because I clocked so many hours playing them, but I always sucked, so I never beat Mario 1, 2, or 3. Mario 1 was probably the easiest, but I think there was a glitch in the cartridge because apparently you're supposed to go inside like a pipe, one of the pipes in the last level, but you wouldn't be able to go into any of them. I think I had a faulty cartridge. I tried every day for years, and I just could not get to that final boss stage, even though I would have probably beaten it. But part 2 and part 3, I'd get to the last level, but I just sucked at video games. Yeah, I've always wanted to be a video game journalist, and I never really wanted to become a video game designer, interestingly enough. I wanted to play video games. I didn't want to make them. I just wanted to play them and give people my opinion on how good the game was. But I was always like a really bad video game journalist. I think I liked the idea of it more than actually being a video game journalist, only because I never played the video games. First of all, I sucked at it, so I couldn't beat it. And secondly, even though I played games religiously growing up when I was a kid and I had nothing to do, the first time I actually had a lot of video games for the first time in my life was when I got the PlayStation. I piled up, collected enough allowance money, and bought the PlayStation, and suddenly video games were really, really cheap. Games back in the days were $60, $70, $80 per cartridge. Whereas now I was dealing with these greatest hits CDs, the CDs that games came in now. They weren't cartridges for the PlayStation. So these CDs, they could sell it to you for only $20. And these RPGs that they were coming out with would take 100 hours to beat. So the first game that I beat for the PlayStation was Final Fantasy VII because it had a lot of hype surrounding it. And I heard so many people tell me that it only took them 30 hours to beat it. For me, it took me almost 90 hours. And I had to level up all of my characters to level 99. I had to top them out at level 99, which is the highest level you could go to. People were saying that they didn't have to level up their characters to beat the final boss. I don't know how that's possible because the final boss is this guy called Sephiroth, and he has this move called the Supernova, and every time he does that move, it's a very cheap boss move. It'll wipe out all your characters. So all of my characters, I was using 3 characters, Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. Tifa and Barret would just die instantly every time. Their health would be full, maxed out. Every time Sephiroth used the Supernova, it would just wipe out 2 of my characters, and Cloud would be in his last breath. Like, he would be clutching for dear life. And he would just be at like 16 health or something. And so I would immediately use like all of my health potions because I never used any of my health potions. I just had them stocked up, so I'd throw everything, the whole kitchen sink on the characters to revive them, resuscitate them, and then bring their lives back up to complete, fill up their health bar. And then Sephiroth would hit me with the Supernova again, and they would all get wiped out again with Cloud gasping and just about to keel over. And yeah, I even had Knights of the Round Table, which was the strongest guardian that you could throw at the boss, and does a lot of damage. But yeah, I barely beat Sephiroth in that game. I played some other games, but I would never really complete them because I would get bored. Like Resident Evil, I love the idea of it. I never beat Resident Evil. I think I was like one level away from the final boss. Like from the final boss, I just stopped playing it one day. And I kept saying, I'm going to get back to it, I'm going to get back to it, and then too much time had passed and I just lost interest. And I also had Resident Evil 2 because I thought that Resident Evil 1 would be really good and I would like to play the sequel, which also had rave reviews. But I never got to part 2. And I also played Silent Hill, which is kind of similar to Resident Evil. It's just like a survival horror game. And again, I did not beat that game. I even bought the strategy guide, but I was too scared. I wasn't really having fun because I was playing it and I just was so scared, not even because of the ghosts and like demons that were coming after me, but because I was so scared to die. It was so easy to die in those games that it just wasn't fun for me. Like I said, I suck at video games, so I don't like it when it's too difficult. I find that I'm just kind of stressed out and anxious because I don't want to die. And then, yeah, I figured out how to kind of become a video game journalist. So first I was volunteering as a video game journalist. Now kids could actually get paid to be journalists on the internet. A lot of fan sites, or at least like actual blogs, media blogs, allow you to write about your favorite subjects. You could write about sports, you could write about video games, and you get paid by the article. Back then, you would just volunteer your free time. You don't get paid for your services. So I would preview video games and I would review video games. And the way I would do it is I would just read like the major publications would preview a video game because they had early access to them. Like IGN, Electronic Gaming Monthly, GameSpot, GamePro. Those places would actually give you a preview of the video games because they'd be receiving demos, they'd be invited to places where they get hands-on experience. They get to see trailers before everyone else. There wasn't anything like YouTube at the time to actually see trailers of video games like there is today. So I would read those previews and then I would just kind of take bits and pieces from each of the previews and then make up my own preview. So I didn't actually plagiarize, but I would just put them all into my own words. Basically like what you had to do for school when you were writing a school report, which is why I got actually very good at writing school reports because of my experience in video game journalism. I applied the same techniques that I used to obtain information from several different sources and then make my own article out of it and make it seem like I was also one of the original people previewing the video game. And I got to a point where I was also doing that with video game reviews. So because I sucked at playing video games and I kind of dreaded playing them and I knew how many hours that I'd have to invest to beat it, like especially the RPGs that took 80 plus hours to beat, whereas other people were claiming they were beating it in like 30 hours. I was just kind of dreading it, honestly, and I was very intimidated by how much time and energy I'd have to invest into the game. And because I was so afraid of that commitment, I would just read other people's reviews and then do the same thing I did with the previews. I would just make up my own review. I would just, I guess, borrow people's opinions and make it seem like, I think this person kind of knows what they're talking about and they kind of like the game, so I like the game too. That's how I would just review the video games, which made me a terrible video game journalist. And yeah, I probably liked the idea of becoming a video game journalist more than actually being one. And it reached this point where I wasn't playing the video games anymore, which totally defeats the purpose of being a video game journalist. I was just a journalist now because I'm just previewing video games that I've never played before. I'm reviewing games that I haven't played before. It just reached this level of ridiculousness. And I eventually applied for this one website called, it was called Gaming Age. I'm not sure if they're still around, but apparently this was the #1 video game fan site where major video game publications were scouting people. This was like the talent pool in which they were scouting their next video game journalists. And so I wanted to join that staff so I could make a name and I could improve my visibility so that I'm actually up for the running for their next spot that is open and available. And I applied, and they told me to contribute some articles, and so I did. And they did not publish it with my actual name. The editor-in-chief took credit for all of my articles. I don't know why that is. I feel like he should have given me credit for it, but he just said, I'm going to just act like I wrote it. And I was just like, okay, whatever. This was part of the hiring process, so I just went with it. I'm not going to complain. And then they said that they had taken a vote. So he actually recommended to me that I should just stay away from their chat room. They had a chat room on IRC, so I couldn't resist being like the 16, 15-year-old that I was. I don't think I was 16. I think I was more like 14. I couldn't resist. I had to get on that chat room and get to know the staff members who work at Gaming Age. I was kind of putting them all up on a pedestal. And I guess I was really immature because when they held a vote at the end of the trial process, they all held a vote and they decided that they did not want me because they were doing it democratically. And the editor-in-chief said that he liked me, but then he got outvoted by the other people. And the staff, they don't want me to be part of the staff. They don't want me to join it. So that pretty much put an end to my video game journalism aspirations. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to become a video game journalist after all, because this was the only sort of path there was to get noticed and get scouted by a major video game publication like Electronic Gaming Monthly, GamePro, PSM. There were a lot of video game magazines back then. Not anymore. They've all gone defunct due to the fall of magazines. Now it's all on the internet. And yeah, the only thing that really still is up is IGN and GameSpot. But and then recently I found out that people were reviewing video games on YouTube. So I was like, maybe it's not too late to become a video game journalist. Maybe I could start reviewing these video games. So I bought all these games because I was so behind. I bought all these games and I started playing them, and honestly, once again, and I beat a couple of them, but some of them I just did not like it nearly as much as the consensus, as much as other people were saying and raving about these games. Like one game in particular that I did not like was Red Dead Redemption. This was a game that was getting a 10 out of 10 on every respectable video game magazine or video game publication, and every video game reviewer was gushing about it. I thought it was the most boring video game. It was very repetitive, redundant. You're learning how to ride a horse, and the graphics were nothing impressive. It was just kind of bland. The color did not really pique my interest. The color palette was just like brown, gray. Even then, I didn't really like it. And there was also another game that I tried to play called Saints Row, and that game I just played for like an hour or two before giving up because I just wasn't interested in it. I played Grand Theft Auto. I think it was like Grand Theft Auto 4, and it was alright. It just wasn't that great for me. It just took a lot of time to beat. But people were raving about these video games, and recently Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and people are saying it's now like the best game of all time and all of that, but if the first game is any indication, I just don't think that my opinion is very relatable. I think video games that a lot of people enjoy, I turn out to not like very much. I don't like long video games. I don't like very challenging video games because I suck at it. But there are a lot of complaints always saying that a video game is too easy, or that or there are actual video game reviewers who will say that a video game is hard, and then in the comment section of these video channels, people will say, oh, like, you can't take a challenge, I want my video game to be hard and all of that. But because we live in an age where we have so many obligations, so many things to do, I don't think a video game should be hard, because you just want to get over with it as soon as possible. You don't want to be stuck on the same level for a week because you have other video games to play, you have a video game review to write, and on. And it's not like you're just playing video games all day. You also have to eat, you also have to do your chores, run your errands, you also probably have to go to your job as well. So yeah, I think I just like the concept of being a video game journalist. Ultimately, I just gave up. I think the last game I played was, well, I will tell you one game that I really enjoyed. Bioshock. I played Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, really enjoyed it. And then Bioshock 3 Infinite, I just stopped playing it. I don't know why. I did recall liking it, but I just stopped playing it. But I loved Bioshock 1 and 2, and I don't know why I stopped playing 3. And prior to that, I played a video game called Earth Defense Force, which again, it received rave reviews. I could not get past like the third level. I sucked at it, and I also found it to be terribly redundant. So I just decided maybe this is not for me after all. I still, strangely enough, ironically enough, the weirdest thing is I still want to become a video game journalist. I kind of have this romantic idea of it. But I'm also self-aware enough to know that I will make a lousy video game journalist because of all of the aforementioned reasons that I've stated throughout this video. But anyway, that was my story of how I've always wanted to become a video game journalist. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.